University, General Badshah sir. His topic is Aladdin's lamp, and it will be a surprise for you.
Pyramid slide is very, very interesting. Three. All three are problems in each of the three levels.
स्ट्रेटजाइज नहीं हम कर पाते ना, हम सब प्रज्ञापन को ऐसे करते हैं, वो स्प्रेड अप और रिसोर्स को थे, रिजल्ट कहीं भी नहीं निकलता। पहले तय करना है कि इनमें से कहाँ पैसे हैं थोड़े, किसी एक ठीक
ये सारे मोमोज
100% लिटरेट कर लें।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable delegates from Islamic Republic of Iran, General Imran Majid, my dear friends who have come from abroad, a warm welcome to you. I'm going to keep this very brief and hopefully interesting. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Zainab. She is my granddaughter, and like many children of her age, she also likes to play doctor. I'm not sure if she will ever become a doctor or not, but I'm quite sure that those who become doctors in 25 years from now will not practice medicine the way we are practicing medicine now. We, in our own lifetime, have seen the introduction of things like fiber optic bronchoscopy, PET scan, MRI, and various other investigations that have changed the face of medicine and the way we practice medicine. We are now seeing the introduction and application of artificial intelligence in reporting X-rays in CAD4 system and many other radiological modalities. Most of us are quite used to talking to Siri, Alexa, and Google in getting our small little things done in our day-to-day lives. But in the future, many of the doctors, or probably most of the doctors, are not going to use their stethoscopes. They are going to have these small little devices in their hand. Their own little Aladdin's lamp will be with them, and they won't even have to rub it. And their invisible genies are going to tell them their patient's history. They are going to do the scan of the patient and tell them the physical findings in the chest and the abdomen. They're going to retrieve the lab investigations for them, give them a provisional diagnosis, and lay out a treatment plan for them. But with all this, there is a little bit of an issue here. You see, the practice of medicine is not only a science, it's also an art. It has been, and it will always be. Many hundred years ago, when man did not know what was causing the disease, and he thought that it was because of demons and because of evil spirits, he treated it with magic spells and with various kind of things that he knew what he could do with it. Later on, it fell into the domain of the barber surgeons. Poor chaps, they didn't know how to deal with it, and the best they could do was to chop off the affected part. With the little patients who were a little less ill, they would either bleed them or apply the leeches, or they would apply the suction cups, a kind of treatment that you would still see going on in many parts of the world. Then it was around sometime in the middle of the 17th century that came a man called Leopold. Actually, he published a work by the name of Inventum Novum. His father used to work, he had a wine cellar, and he used to tap these wooden caskets with his fingers to find out how much of a wine was there in these wooden caskets. And Leopold used to observe him, and based on that, he started percussing the chest and then published his work. Because of this, Leopold is considered as the father of modern medicine. Some 50 years later, Linnaeus was walking down the road when he found two children playing. One was hitting a tube at one end and the other child was listening at the other end. He came to his clinic and used the same technique to listen to the chest of the patient. He was so inspired by it that he went on to develop what we now know as the stethoscope. This is Sir Joseph Bell. He was a renowned physician from Edinburgh who was a master in the art of history taking and in the power of observation to come to a clinical diagnosis. Nobody knows him, but it was this man, Sir Arthur Conan who was a clerk with Sir Joseph Bell and based his character of Sherlock Holmes on the basis of Sir Joseph Bell. With time, the clinical examination and the history taking coming together, physicians established themselves as a definite entity along with the surgeons in the society. This painting is a very famous painting. It was commissioned in England and was painted by Fields. Now Fields' own child died on Christmas Eve, and he painted it as a tribute to the doctor who looked after the child. What's great about this painting is that you don't see anything in this painting which could tell you that this man is a doctor. There is no stethoscope, no doctor's bag, nothing. It is just the person sitting there with the concern and empathy about the patient reflecting out of this picture. This painting became so popular that it was reproduced on hundreds of posters and calendars and even on a postage stamp because it reflected the human connection between the doctor and his patient. Many of you would recognize this building, the Sidao Medical College, where I was educated. Here I am standing in the last row, and the gentleman standing in front is Professor Khaja Moeen. He was no less than a physician than Professor Joseph Bell. And our rounds were something like this, with the patient in the center of our little universe. He taught us medicine, he taught us bedside manners, he taught us about life. But somewhere along the road, not only in our part of the world, but all along, things began to change. The rounds became something like this. Somewhere away in a room with the professor sitting and his juniors sitting along, and the patient being discussed. The patient's name was replaced by a bed number. His case record was being projected on a screen. A Stanford professor very aptly called this an eye patient, where the actual patient was actually sitting in the room far away in his bed, waiting for somebody to come and tell him what's wrong with him, when will he be all right. With all this, people were graduating from the college, but some of them were not becoming doctors. The human touch was getting lost. Our body is covered with 18 square feet of skin with more than 5 million nerve endings for a reason. It is for us to touch. Touch is what makes the society vibrant. We start feeling the touch when we are born, even before we open our eyes. We extend our hands to shake hands when we want friendship. We give a high five when we feel success. We hold the hand of somebody else when we want to comfort somebody. But when a doctor touches and examines a patient, he creates a bond in which a patient opens up and shares his deepest fears and his innermost pain to the doctor. And in return, the doctor commits to help the patient at the cost of his personal and family life. And sometimes in this bond, no words need to be said. This is a picture from 2004 when I was in Quetta. I was in the 5th row of the 10th Muharram procession when the terrorists opened fire on the Muharram Julus. In the pandemonium that followed between the fire on the shops all around, I tried to help some of the victims that were there, and then I somehow managed to take an ambulance and get to the CMH. I will not forget what I saw there. The floor was red with blood and was lined with injured and dead people. As I went back and forth trying to help the injured people, someone caught hold of my leg. As I turned around, I saw a man sitting there with the body of a dead child whose half face had been blown off. In a cry of despair, he asked me, why was it that everybody was being helped and nobody is looking after my child? I sat down, took out a crepe bandage and wrapped it around the face of the dead child, took out my stethoscope and placed it on the chest of that child for maybe 30 seconds or something. Then I took the hand of that father, and without saying anything, I looked in his eyes, and with an expression that he could understand, I just moved my head to make him understand that there is nothing more that can be done. He clutched my hand and he started weeping as I held his head to my chest. 6 months later, he came to my clinic to thank me for helping his child in his last moments. No amount of technology can take away this relationship, this human touch between the doctor and the patient. As the future opens the door for you, do go ahead and claim your Aladdin's lamp. But make sure that you remain the master of the lamp and do not let the invisible genie of technology become your master. But more important than that, go out and hold the hand of your patient and make him feel that you are his friend. And whenever he will need you, you will always be there for him. I am BadshahZaidi, and you have been a great audience. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much for your beautiful and illustrative presentation and really diverting the attention of the professionals towards the humane part of our profession.